This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 198, recorded on January 8th, 2015. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all your favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios, and it wouldn't be a home tech podcast without Sarah laughing behind me. Broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in Bellevue, Nebraska, and we post the show. If you go back and listen really careful on the audio, you will hear her laugh, for sure. Out at the AverageGuy.tv. If you have questions, comments, or contributions, of course, you can always contact the show. Send me an email. Jim at thEndUsr. You can track me down on Twitter at jcollison. And now you can call those in. And actually, Neil has been really good at calling in a lot of questions. Neil and I have been kind of going back and forth, both via email and on those lines. You can call those numbers in, call those questions in, 402-478-8450. And I'm actually going to play one of those a little bit later, I hope. Yet he's got a question around licensing and MSDN. So I wanted to play that a little bit later tonight. And, of course, Home Gadget Geeks is now a part of the Geeks Network. You can find the links to this show and many other great podcasts out at thegeeksnetwork.com, all one word. You can join us in chat, watch or listen live on YouTube, Spreaker, now on Mixlr as well, and find all the navigation over at thEaverageGuy.tv. All right, it wouldn't be the beginning of the year if we didn't invite Chris Barnes back to come on. It seems like I've had him on maybe once a year for the last couple years. And of course, Chris, it's great to have you on the podcast. Welcome to Home Gadget Geeks. Great to have you back.
Yeah, thanks. It's always good to be here. We looked it up, and it was last year, January 30th, I was on, and it is currently the 8th, so it's nearly exactly a year. So anyway, thanks for bringing me back on.
You bet. I think in my cycle, as I'm scheduling people, I get to the beginning of the year, and I'm just like, I got to have Chris back on. It does come at a good time because I think with CES, we'll talk about that here in a few minutes, but it's always good to have you on and talk about that as well. And then, of course, my old Windows home server podcasting friend and all things, everything, and it's John Zadler. John, how are you?
Wow, what an introduction. Thanks, Jim. Yeah, glad to be on there. Thanks for getting me in close to the end of the year and now the beginning of the year.
Yeah. No, we had you on last week as we talked about 2015 stuff coming up. And actually last year I tried to get you on with Chris together, and we had some kind of scheduling snafu, and I think you had to back out at the last minute. We brought Tony Rayner in, and the two of us did that. But I always like to get the two of you together on here, and so appreciate that. Appreciate you coming on. Of course, Chris is behind all things over on the digital media zone, but his podcast is called thEndUsr, and Chris, you guys are up to like 189.
Yeah, we're getting close.
Yeah.
And I should say, Josh Pollard over at the DMZ is kind of the leader of the pack over there. But yeah, the thEndUsr is one of the 3 podcasts on that network, along with Home On and Entertainment 2.0.
Yeah, and how?
But yeah, we're getting close to 200. I'm excited.
Yeah, us too. We're not too far behind, or too far ahead of you at this point. We'll be there in a couple weeks. You're coming up here in probably March or so, late February, early March. What's going on over there? What kind of stuff has, podcasts always kind of evolve, as they go along.
True.
You guys changing, staying the same? What have you been covering? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, it's really madness for us this week because CES is upon us. And that's always very exciting. So we had about a double-length show this week on just everything that's happening at CES. We try to filter out, we've adopted a kind of methodology where we try to filter out rumors and stuff that you're never going to see. And at CES time in particular, you're never really sure if you're actually going to see the product get released to market. So on the thEndUsr in general, we try to talk about stuff that is actually happening or is announced by a reputable company like Apple, right? If Apple says something is coming out, it's probably going to come out. So we try to stay on top of the news in that way, so that we don't lead people astray who are asking, whatever happened to this. So we try to develop this kind of strong filter against just kind of pointless rumors and gadgets that won't come out.
You kind of have that rule on your show as well, right? I mean that
Yeah.
not just with CES, but you guys don't really like to talk rumors. It's kind of unless it's really happening or you have a really strong feeling that's going to happen, you don't really cover it, right?
Yeah, that's kind of the idea, and particularly the real TMZ kind of rumors in the tech industry. They pop up in the tech industry because we're all humans and we like gossip, right? But we just try to ignore that kind of thing as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, how do you do that? I mean, as you guys think about this, is it just like a decision, a game time decision?
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually what we do is we compile the show notes for the podcast up front, and then we get together and we say, oh, no, that's too rumory. That thing's never going to come out. That's ridiculous. And we kind of trim the fat away from the show notes, and then we talk about what's left. And then there's also another category that we call the afterburners, where it's basically the news is there's a new Android phone and it has these specs. So when something of that class of news comes out, we put it in the afterburners, and that's basically all we say about it, But we try to talk about in our other two sections of the podcast, we try to talk about stuff that has import in the industry in some way, has some kind of implication that's a little larger than, look, there's a new Android phone over there.
Yeah, well, you can. It's just like in the old Windows days. You can talk about that stuff forever ad nauseum if you want to. But of course, home automation is a big deal, and I assume that finds its way into your podcast as well.
It does. More and more, the DMZ has a home automation specific podcast, so a lot of times we'll kind of leave it up to them. But more and more, it's coming into the mainstream. People are starting to be aware of it in a way that just wasn't there in even the last year or two. And I think CES is home automation's coming out party. So I'm kind of excited about that because it's a whole genre of devices that a lot of people haven't heard of yet. And it's a whole genre of devices that personally I find quite exciting. And I think it's possible that could be the next kind of smartphone category that we're going to see. But who knows? We're trying to predict the future, and that never works out. So
I thought the big thing over at CES was 3D TVs.
No, the big thing on TVs this year is quantum dot, which is a new kind of backlighting technology for LED backlit LCD TVs, and it's supposed to be the new hotness in TVs. It's supposed to give you much better black levels on the TV. And we talked on thEndUsr with Josh, and he said that you may be prepared to be a little disappointed by the quantum dot. I don't know. I haven't actually seen one.
Okay. Yeah, Dave showed it at Showstoppers, I think, where he was at. I think that's where he was. He was showing some of the TVs that were there. I don't get too excited about that part, although there was a kind of I forget the size of it, 30-some, a curved monitor, 4K monitor that was looked pretty sweet. And price point like $599, $699, something that's nothing that ridiculous for what you're getting.
I also saw a HP monitor that was a 21:9, and I think it was curved, if I am remembering. I'm not sure about that one, but big 21 by, forget the two monitors. You can just have this gigantic 21:9, cinema ratio kind of monitor. So that seemed kind of cool. But I don't know. I like my two monitors.
Well, I kind of do it anyways, right? I've got them on a stand, and they're just in a V configuration as opposed to...
Right, yeah, that's what I do too.
As opposed to curved. So this is the first year I've looked at curved and kind of went, that kind of makes sense. Before I'm like, I don't know, it's kind of gadgety, gimmicky, especially on the big, gigantic TVs. You're kind of like, I don't know if that makes sense on the big TVs. But on the desktop, all of a sudden, it's kind of like, well, hey, maybe this is real.
So what you got to get is, this was last year at CES. I'm not sure if this ever saw the consumer market, so we probably didn't talk about it on thEndUsr. Maybe we did because it was wacky enough. But I forget who was making it, but it was a curved TV. It was like 100 inches or something ridiculous, right? And you could push a button on the remote, and it would mechanically uncurve itself.
Interesting.
So you could convert between the two depending on exactly what kind of
And so was that
media
was
you
that
were
kind of
using.
flexible screen technology that would
Yes.
allow for that? Okay.
Yeah, and some kind of mechanical pole thing that would pull in the wings, as it were.
It's when you're going faster, you need to pull those wings in.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you're
It's
not
like on
going
some of those cars where you see the wing in the back there just goes up because the guy's going quicker. It's like, oh yeah, that really helps, in the aerodynamics.
Yeah, John,
Save
have you
yourself 20 cents on gas?
John, have you seen anything? Have you followed CES coverage, John? And have you seen anything interesting from your side?
No, not really. I haven't really been following CES. I'm looking forward to see what what new hardware these guys are going to come out with for since because Windows 10 is supposed to, or the rumor is, or you get the Windows 8.1 with Bing, it's free, and a lot of the Microsoft that might be where they're kind of going. So I want to see a bunch of Windows 8 or some maybe new a phone, a new type of phone there for Microsoft and stuff like that.
Yeah, John, we saw the Intel Compute Stick, which was kind of a demo technology that they're going to release as a real product that's running Windows 8.1 with Bing, and it's basically a stick that's slightly bigger than a USB stick, maybe something like this big, and it's running Windows 8.1. You just plug it into the back of your HDMI somewhere, and that's a full Windows 8.1 computer in a stick.
Wow. So it's got all the memory and I guess not hard drive. We shouldn't say hard drive. We say disk space. Even disk space is about
storage space.
Yeah. Non-volatile memory.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting year for Windows and for what comes out with it. And I think this is going to be it'll be maybe the summer of Windows as we think about all the Windows 10 stuff that's coming and what they're going to do with that. And there'll be a big ramp up in the spring as we're going to see the consumer preview that comes out in a couple weeks, I think, for 10. And those guys are working hard, except during Christmas time. They take that time off there at Microsoft. And everybody, they kind of have a mass exodus out of the campus. But there are some really, really interesting things coming with it, and I think some exciting things, including some rumors of some Windows Phone 10 and some other things coming along those lines. So I think that's pretty exciting. I hope they
grab a little bit more of that market because from what I've heard, there's the Android phones. Android is good on phones, but as far as tablets, people haven't grabbed it and say, okay, that's the go-to place. And before Microsoft, messes things up. Hopefully they, all their, like I say, ducks line up there and they get that OS and then people like it and then get it on some tablets and make it fancy because, it's mobile is the way everybody wants to go. And, just like before, we sat in front of our PCs when we wanted to go to email and now forget it. So it's it's got to be mobile. So give us something nice or even whatever. So figure out something for the wrist or something besides a phone or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
Microsoft is kind of doing with their
with the band, right? With the band.
Yeah.
Let me segue a little bit with that, Chris. Let me ask you: have you gotten excited at all about the wearables movement? And I mean, there's some serious wearables now.
Yeah, it is just so nascent right now. It's hard to even express. Smartwatches right now, I like to say, are in the Palm Pilot era compared to the smartphone era, right? So. The best one that I've seen currently, I think, is still the Moto 360. That's been my kind of, it's been the most impressive one that I've seen, but I've still yet to see a smartwatch that has the characteristics that most people would need to buy one for $300. We need to see that drop, and we need to see a few more features that make sense for a lot of people. They've kind of found this niche of fitness tracking devices. There was a cool watch, the Activite from YThings. Remember they made that Wi-Fi connected scale as well, and they kind of bridged the gap in a nice way where it's a real watch. It's just a mechanical watch, like it has arms and everything, and it just has the fitness tracker technology built into it. And so I feel like that's kind of a nice shim for the moment, but until we get that price down and we get that battery life up, I just feel like most normal people aren't going to go for it. The technology enthusiasts like us, we're going to go for it. I'm going to get one, right? I had a Palm Pilot too. But I feel like for it to really get out into the mass market, they've got some work to do. But these are the absolute nascent days of the smartwatch market. And frankly, I'm surprised Apple is in that market. They're usually not in on the ground level. They wait for things to mature. But they've got a watch. Rumors it's coming out in March. So we'll see what that product actually looks like around then. And it's a very exciting time for smartwatches as we see companies kind of struggle around and scrounge around for what these things are actually supposed to do and what they're supposed to look like. And I'd like to see one with wireless charging. We haven't seen that yet, to my knowledge. And it's the Wild West right now. And over time, the industry will kind of mature, but we're not quite there yet.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Especially stuff like like what Microsoft is doing. Like, they have their watch, but how many hours is it? 4 hours or 6 hours? And they have the for a sleep mode to kind of check what's going on when you're sleeping. But that's when I'm charging my device, so I can't wear it because I'm charging it. So some stuff it's like, oh, we can do these different things because it's on your wrist. It's checking your your pulse and stuff. It's able to get some data out of it as opposed to your watch. Maybe your phone. Maybe your phone can count your steps and do some stuff like that. But some phones can't check your calories and stuff like that? There's no way.
Well, they can. There's so Samsung has on the Galaxy phones. They'll count steps and integrate in with MyFitnessPal and a lot of those. This is kind of where the future is going. Is all these apps are integrating in with each other, and and they're all hooking together. But yeah, you can get some of that on your phone, John.
Yeah, because I want to see like a good case. Have your watch. And and it's great. Like one of my friends, just today we were discussing. He actually has he took like a wall thermostat, a digital thermostat. Yeah, works off a 9-volt battery. But he built a little circuit that connects wirelessly to his heater in his house, in the basement, his oil heater, and it's a dual energy and stuff like that. And what he does is he walks around with this device. He brings it into different rooms in his house, and he puts it there, and it checks the temperature of the room, and then it adjusts the temperature on the furnace. You'll either turn on the heat or lower the heat or whatever, depending where he is, And at nighttime, let's say he's in his bedroom, after a certain time, it's like, okay, drop the temperature by 2 degrees wherever I am, So it's kind of like following him around and adjusting the temperature. But that's, in this box that he's carrying around. So, I mean, if that works for him and if people find that useful, then maybe something like that on a watch. It's like, okay, I'm going near the fridge now, put my good snacks in the front or something, or turn the lights off in the other room because now I'm in here, or you come into the TV room and somehow your lights adjust, again with this home automation and all that stuff. Like try to help me out, and that would be nice to see because I guess there is some stuff with like the Xbox One, but you're talking $500. Device, you can at least talk to your Xbox and tell it to do a few things. But here, hopefully, for maybe $200, if you can get a nice watch that'll kind of like do things around the house for you, I think that would be great.
Yeah, I could definitely see a lot of interesting integration points between the watch, the phone, and the home automation system. There's magic to be had between the three of these things.
Yeah, I think there's a lot, and I mean, Chris, think about the distance we've come with home automation just in the last year. I mean,
Long way.
A year ago, I was like, okay, this is still kind of jankety, and not, the average guy isn't gonna buy this. Where today, it's like, oh, hey, all right. Some of this is getting compelling. When we think about wearables, I'm intrigued by Garmin's offering now, and Garmin's kind of not been known. They've been doing watches for a long time on the running side, but we're kind of latecomers to the wearable. If you think about, biometrics, really is what this is when we track all the stuff in us. And they've released a new one in the VivoFit line, and actually, last year's model, a little prompt when you're not moving around enough. If you haven't moved in 15 or 20 minutes, it's kind of like, hey, and it won't stop bothering you. You can of course turn that off, but it won't stop bothering you until you get up and actually start, moving around a little bit, which is great. But the newest of the Vivo line actually has a touch screen, so the whole piece around is touch sensitive, and it's integrating in with your phone, so it's sending those alert notifications of email and some of those other things to them. You can swipe those away. So it's kind of like the best functions of the band, because I really like what Microsoft's doing with their band, and I like that design. I like that concept of it being a band and not a watch. I'm not, even though I have a big round watch on mine. This is a running watch that I wear. I like the band concept, and you can just swipe that on the band, and so. That newest line from Garmin, and then the website that they have, the Connect, they call it Connect, Garmin Connect, brings that in, and it integrates with MyFitnessPal and a whole bunch of other things, which is one of the amazing things I'm seeing in these is MyFitnessPal now connects to 30 different devices, which makes you think, what, there's 30 devices out there, kind of deal. And so there's we're making a lot of progress on this. I think, like anything, 3 will emerge as the winners here at some point, with one being dominant and the other 2 struggling. But I think it's great stuff. I think, being able to monitor your heart rate on a 24/7 basis has amazing medical implications for people. I think being able to measure skin temperature and activity, I think it's just good stuff, and so we've been dreaming about it for a while, but I think we're getting closer and closer to it. So do you have the Moto 360 that you use, or is that just your favorite as you see?
No, that's just my pick. I haven't really, I played with them at Best Buy or whatever. That's about it. But I haven't really jumped in yet. I haven't seen the use case for it. And then also, I don't even wear a watch anymore. So I don't know if short of maybe the fitness thing is a little interesting, but for the kind of everyday usefulness of it, I'm just not seeing it quite yet.
John, go ahead.
Again, I have like a as a technology enthusiast, it's like, well, I must have this, right? This is the thing. But I've so far restrained myself.
John, are you wearing a watch at all? Do you wear a regular watch?
I'm not a jewelry kind of guy.
Nothing. Yeah.
No necklace, no stuff. Even the wedding ring there, when I was married there, the wedding ring after, it's like, it's.
Well, and I didn't.
don't know, Chris, you're freshly married, right? You got
yes,
the
that's
wedding
right.
ring on
there.
Got used to that.
Was that this year?
Yes.
Did you get married this year?
Not 2015.
2014.
2014. Yes.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah. Not too long ago, we were up in Milwaukee. It was beautiful.
Nice. Well, congratulations. She into tech or not?
A little bit.
Okay, that's good.
She's got the new Nexus 9, so she's pretty up to date.
Okay.
She can handle a remote.
Which that may have been a Christmas present from somebody. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how Santa works.
Nicely done. Well, I'm not a watch guy either. I went, as soon as I got cell phones, man, I just ditched my watches. And I went for a lot of years. And last May, I was running a marathon. And I went, I'd really like, I don't carry a phone, right? I won't do it on a phone. Because you can, right? You can carry your phone.
Sure.
It'll measure everything.
No,
So I went down to Target. They had them on sale. I picked them up. They're not cheap. These Garmin 220s. I think I paid $250 for it. And it really is just a running. I mean, it just keeps track. It's GPS, and it does it really, really well. But I've found ways to use it for other things when I'm working out. Now, I still don't get steps. I think steps may be a little overrated. Maybe they work for some people. If it did steps, I would measure them for sure. But I found ways to, and this watch Bluetooth connects with my phone, and so my runs and my workouts make their way over. And I think there'll be some firmware upgrades that make it better. But now that it's doing it, I'm kind of a watch guy again. I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool to have a watch. It's not a smartwatch, and that's what a lot of people think. They're like, oh, did you get that newest smartwatch? No, it's actually just a runner. It's a running watch. It's a GPS watch. So while I didn't, 10 years I probably didn't wear a watch at all. I would go back to, if I found the right band, I might go to a band on my right, on the right wrist, just to start gathering some of those biometrics. So I may go from nothing to 2, which is probably an overkill.
Yeah, you have to get one with a heart rate monitor. Not all of them do that quite yet.
No, but they're more and more common, right? So the band
Yeah.
does that. The Charge does that from Fitbit.
The HR does that. There's two of those things. One of them, the one that's called HR, the Charge HR is the one.
Right. Charge and Surge. I think the Surge does that as well. They're talking about that. Mike Howard was going to buy that. He had it all ordered, and then they were like, "Oh, it's still 4 to 6 weeks out from manufacturing." And he was like, "Are you kidding me? You sent me an email that said it was ready." And so he was a little disgruntled. Fitbit has had some problems, some manufacturing problems.
Well,
Sure.
they're a startup company. I think they overcommitted themselves. They ran into some problems. They had that recall, you remember. I'm sure that wasn't good for them.
That affected me.
So
I bought that watch, of course.
I think it's just a new company in a new category, and they ran into some troubles. That was all. So I'm looking forward to their this current generation of products. I feel like they'll have a few less problems. They've learned a lot.
Well, let's hope so. They still have some manufacturing issues as far as they were very, very late getting this. I mean, they could have dominated the market if they would have had those HR watches ready for the Christmas season. You mentioned it earlier. I think it's a mistake that Apple waited till March to release their watch. I think they could have been up front too. Everybody was ready for it, and then they're like, "Oh, we're just kidding. It's not going to be available till March." I think that was a mistake on their part. Everybody was looking for watches this season, and the Apple Watch wasn't there. And yeah, some people waited for it, but I think they could have just sold a gazillion of those. They would have sold as many as they made, right, if Apple would have put a watch out.
See, but the typical Apple way of working is that they wait overly long until the technology is really mature. With the one exception, or I'm sure there's plenty of exceptions, but the one exception is probably the iPod. And even the iPod, there were MP3 players before that.
Yeah.
But those were Palm Pilots, right? That was just the nascent days of that. Yes, iRiver.
iRiver?
There was iRiver. I had a Rio Diamond 500,
Rio Diamond.
the 64 megabyte MP3 player. I had one before that was 32. These things.
You could get like 10 songs on them.
It was like an album or two.
Yeah, it's I can get all of Joshua Tree on this one.
But yeah, Apple usually waits until the market's kind of mature and then makes takes all the lessons that everybody who flailed at the market before and puts that into a product and makes something really way over polished compared to their competition. So I'm actually almost surprised they came in as early as they did, because I feel like it's still a little nascent.
Oh, well, okay. So you're saying they're still early. I kind of think they're late to the game on this. But you're right. I mean, you're right. They do wait for the market to for a lot of things to happen, and then they kind of come in and take it. At least that's what they've done. I'm gonna call this one. I don't think this is gonna go as far as they think it's gonna go when they do this watch. I think it's, I don't know. Maybe it's because it's too early. In your opinion, maybe it's still too early for them to put something like this out. Well,
it's not a very sexy looking watch either.
Yeah, I haven't even looked at it, to be honest with you. It's one of those things. It's kind of like, I don't know. If I would go with the band, if I was going to go with anything at this point, I don't like the thickness of the band, and I'm going to kind of wait for the next version of it before I take a good hard look at it. Chris, did you look at the band at all? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've looked at the band. I haven't gone into like a Microsoft store and used it at all, but I've kept up with the features and that kind of thing, and I think it's interesting. It is a little thicker than a lot of the competitors, but I love that they're getting in on Android and Windows Phone and integrate and iOS, and it's going to work with all of the platforms. I love that, because if they had not done that, it just goes nowhere, right? I mean, the fact that they're integrating with all three of the platforms, Windows Phone being one of them, is huge. And there's I've seen maybe one other wearable device that even does Windows Phone at all. So they came into the people who are Windows Phone users first. They come in, and the Microsoft band is going to dominate that, right? Like, there's no question. But it's very nice to see that they're supporting all the platforms. they're traditionally a software company. They write software, and software can go cross-platform. And this is some hardware and some software that's doing that. So I really am encouraged by that. I think if they keep that kind of attitude up, they will go far.
They've done a nice job, and there's some great stuff for the Windows Phone that makes it a great experience on the Windows Phone. It doesn't make it on Android, doesn't make it any less on the iPhone or on on Android, but on Windows Phone, they've got some interesting apps that are coming out with it. So pretty good. I wish it bent a little bit more. I am stuck
it's
on
stiff,
it's
right?
straight, and I just was like, oh, just bend that 5 degrees, and I'm in. Type deal. So I think the next version will come out will be
maybe
a little more ergonomically. John, if somebody bought you a band, you said you're not a jewelry guy. Would you wear it if somebody gave it to you as a gift, or do you even care about all that biometric stuff?
No, the biometric stuff I'm not really interested. No.
Okay.
I would like it maybe more for like emails and appointments and stuff like that, like the regular kind of stuff, and maybe like I said, some home automation stuff. And I'm not too old like to think like one thing I was thinking a good use for it is like sometimes how some older people, like people in their whatever 70s or 80s, they have to take medication, and it's like, oh, it's time for this pill, that pill, or whatever. So if there was some kind of system that you can kind of download to it, and even like let's say you have a relative or a hospital or whoever it is, sends you information, say, okay, you have to take this pill or whatever, or if the person's sleeping and then they're having a hard time sleeping, this could alert somebody or whatever. Or like firemen or whatever. If it's the middle of the day and they seem to be lying down, well, the big alarm's gonna go off. It's like the guy must get knocked off. So like if an old person would fall over and lying horizontal at 3 in the afternoon, who knows? Depends when they take their naps, But then you could say, hey, is this person sleeping or is this person just passed out or what? So I'm not there yet.
Heart
so
stopped?
I wouldn't need those. Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is where the heart rate monitor becomes critical, because if somebody's having a heart attack, that there's some predictive indicators of that, and imagine that alerting through the phone. I mean, I just had a long conversation with my mom last night about her medical health, and I'd love to have some biometric tracking on her that I could kind of have her or doctor keep an eye on. Mm-hmm. So I think there's some great uses. We think of it from a geek standpoint, but John, you're right. I think our elderly population would actually benefit more from these devices than we might.
The other thing I would like to see is almost like a cheap phone, like a GPS, like may get something for maybe $20 or $40, a little GPS wristband or something for children. Like when you go off to school and stuff like that. Okay, yeah, my kid's at school. The kid's at the lodge, in the yard, and he's not like running whatever down the street or something. At the McDonald's. So sometimes maybe make some even just cheap, low-end cheap device waterproof. The kid's in the pool or something like that. Kind of like what's going on or whatever. So yeah. They're not just the high end, all the bells and whistles. There could be just some low end stuff.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
So I don't know for sure, but I can nearly guarantee you that if you look at the terms of service of all of these health devices, they say this is not a medical device.
Yes, I'd agree.
So I'd be careful. Looking towards consumer technology companies for medical devices is potentially disastrous, right?
Yeah, but we have our local University of Nebraska at Omaha. I've been over there several times, and they have been messing around a lot with these kinds of near field and
sure.
these devices, especially gyros, on patients to determine. They can actually put a device on you, and they'll watch walking patterns. And if your walking pattern goes awry, it's different today than it was for the last 20 days, and it looks like you're beginning to stumble, they can actually, because they want to prevent falls. When my dad fell and broke his hip a couple years back, that was the beginning of a 3-month process that happens to a lot of older people. They break their hips first, or their hip, and that leads to complications, and we lose them very, very quickly after that. And so they're trying to prevent these hip, and so I think there's some cool things there with it. I think what I hear you saying is we need to be careful about these consumer grade offerings that are coming out, right? The bands and stuff, and applying them to medical, situations. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. There's a constant frustration, like with these blood sugar meters and the insulin pumps and that kind of thing for diabetics. They're like 15 years way old. They're now they've got wireless communication between the device and the pump, and you can actually they're unencrypted, and people around you can mess with it if they were of the hackerly mind. But these companies move slowly for a reason, and it's because they're just very conservative, the healthcare technology companies. So I was just saying, maybe slow down with the quick-moving consumer technology companies. I guarantee you, in their terms of service, they'd say, "Well, this is not a medical device." Otherwise, they'd be regulated by someone.
Well,
I'm not sure by who.
That's a whole nother part, right? That there's some regulation in that. I'd still like to put a band on my mom.
Yes.
And get some of that info, kind of type deal. Say, Mom, I need you to get, I need you to do a step goal, because she needs to move around every day, and that would be good for her to kind of track that, and I think she would respond well to it. So from that standpoint, for the same reasons we use it, I'd love to see her using it to move around and keep track of stuff. So, Tony says FDA.
Rain, if it's freezing rain outside, the front door won't unlock, because she gets to the front door. It's like, no, won't unlock.
Whoa, there you go. There you go. We're going to talk a smidge about home automation, but that would be an interesting, when we talk about smart wearables, you're right, hey, if it's dangerous outside or the temperatures are dangerous, especially think about like an Alzheimer's patient who shouldn't be leaving a particular area. And if there's dangerous conditions outside, it may lock down. And they're at home. It may lock the house so that they physically can't go outside. Wow, that's like I don't know if you could actually do that, if that's the right thing to do or not, right? I mean, Chris, is that the right thing to do to somebody?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're looking at the dystopian future side of it, when these things these things become sentient and lock us in our houses.
I know. It's not good for you outside.
Yeah.
It's never good for you outside.
I can't do that, Jim.
Exactly. Well, interesting.
They just need to be vetted more, is all.
Time.
Time is the cure.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. So, Dave said at CES, tons of wearables. So a great conversation to be having right now around some of these devices and some things to kind of catch up. It dovetails in with some home automation stuff, Chris, that you've been doing. Let's dive into that a little bit. Sure. I assume in the marriage, did you move, change locations? Are you in a new place? Are you setting up new home automation? Same old place? How did that work?
Well, we didn't move too long ago, but that was not the impetus. We got a Smart Things like starter kit for Christmas, and then after I got the starter kit, I just went off and bought a bunch of lamp modules because I knew exactly what I wanted to do, so I knew which components. Once I had the hub, I knew which components I wanted and what I wanted to kind of achieve. And I still don't know, there's like infinite possibilities with this stuff. So I'm sure there's a lot of good ideas out there, and I'm still kind of learning a lot about actually using one of these home automation products. Because, I've been a watcher of this stuff for a long time since we're doing the podcast a lot. We're always kind of keeping an eye out on this kind of stuff. And I finally decided that we would jump onto the Smart Things bandwagon. Cool little note, they are a Washington, D.C. startup company that Samsung bought, and they shipped them off to San Francisco for some reason. So just kind of a cool little note because I'm from Washington, D.C., and I'm broadcasting from Washington, D.C. right now. So anyway, so what I did is I went out there and we got the hub, we got a motion sensor, and we got 5 lamp modules to turn the various lamps in the apartment on and off. So you also have to keep in mind, we're apartment living here in the city, so a lot of this stuff has to be non-destructive. That's a huge thing that we have to take into account. So I think the most we could possibly do is replace one of the switch panels. And even that, I'd have to talk to apartment management and, say, oh, turn the power off, and I don't know if we have to get someone else to do it or if I can do it. I'd be comfortable doing it if it were my house, but we're renting in the city, so that doesn't really make sense.
Right, you have some limitations for sure.
Right, so these lamp modules, and they make dimmer modules as well, but I just went with the on-off ones. They're perfect because they plug into a plug, and they are a plug that you plug a lamp into, and then you can turn devices on and off. So we got 4 of those in the living room and 1 in the bedroom, which is also the thEndUsr studios here. See, back there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me focus on you. Hold on. Do it again. Turn it off.
There. It becomes this like amorphous blob of white light on the camera. If you're listening later on the podcast, it becomes kind of ghastly back there. I could almost hide something in the light back there.
Yeah.
But so I've just got my Android device in hand, and I can turn that on and off. And
how much for each of those units?
So I'd have to go look. I think it's 55. And if you buy a bundle of 5, which is what I did, there's some trifling discount of some sort. Like maybe $10 off or something like that.
Okay.
So it's still quite expensive.
Yeah, $250 to get in for that. Plus the starter kit, right?
Plus the hub by itself is $100, and I'd have to go look at what the starter kit. The starter kit came with a motion sensor and a little presence like keychain thing. And what's cool also is that they use your smartphone as a presence sensor. So, for example, one of the things that I've set up with the system here is when I'm within about 1 block and it's after sunset, all the lights turn on. So when I walk in the door, the lights are already on. And when I leave, I don't turn the lights out. It just knows that I'm gone, and it turns them off.
Yeah, that's handy.
Yeah, so that's pretty nice.
Yeah, it's a good way. Unless you're drive by and you're in the neighborhood, but you're not planning to stop at home. I was in the neighborhood and the lights just came on. And now, what if someone's home? Then I assume they're on, and they're not going to change based on your location at that point because your wife's in the house.
Right.
Yeah.
If any one person is home, they will not turn off.
It overwrites the system. Yeah.
Right. But if no one is home and any one person arrives and it's after sunset, they'll flip on.
Have you had any problems with? We get this in the workplace all the time. We've got all these smart sensors. I work in a smart
they never
building.
work.
They don't. Yeah, they don't. So does that? If you're sitting quietly reading in another room or something for a while and it thinks that you've left, have you had those kinds of problems?
Oh yes.
Okay.
It took some learning to figure out exactly the kind of incantation you have to put into the app, right? Because it's still not as easy as I think it should be. And I think one of the reasons with smart things, at least, is they try to make it so easy to do really simple stuff. If you just throw that one last condition on what you want to do, it stops being quite as easy. So they're almost, it's so simple it makes some difficult things even more difficult.
Right.
Than they really should be.
Right.
So I ran into some of that. But, there's kind of a learning period, and you kind of figure out, well, okay, I can do this after sunset, right? Not after 4, because that changes. Sunset changes. You don't know when it's dark, and I don't have a light sensor quite yet. Would they sell those? But so there's this kind of learning period where you learn what the capabilities of the system that you have are. And I definitely went through that. There was definitely a time where I went off to the store and my wife was still at home on the couch, and all the lights went out.
Yeah, she was nice and quiet or nice and still.
I had programmed the system to, on anyone's departure, turn the lights out. That's what I had done. And
oops.
computers are pretty faithful, and they will do what you tell them to, unfortunately.
That's exactly what you tell them to do. And then
right.
So you left the area, and whoop.
Yep. So when I was about a block down on the way to the grocery store, all the lights went on. And of course,
yelling.
Well, she has an Android device too, so she just flipped on her phone and turned them all on. That's fine.
That's
but
good.
There's definitely some learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing is she has a smartphone too. If she didn't have a smartphone, we'd have to figure out some other mechanism for presence.
Yeah, that's a dilemma a little bit. I mean, it is assuming you're connected via phone of some kind.
Right. Or if I go up to that light and I switch the pull string so the light's off, now I can't turn it on anymore.
Right.
So you got to say we're banning pulling strings on lamps, right?
No, don't turn anything off.
Don't do that.
I need it on. I need it
Messing
on.
with my Zen.
Yeah. And so with this, how long have you been using the auto capabilities? I mean, how long have you been using these? When did you put them in?
So it's basically since shortly after Christmas. So not all that long. It's what, week and a half, 2 weeks.
And so how's the adoption been, the life acceptance factor? Has it gotten better as it's gone along? Has it gotten worse? Because what always happens to me is I put it in, I love it, she hates it. She figures it out, falls in love with it. By the time that happens, I'm already moved on to the next thing, and I don't want to support it anymore. So, I'm like, and she's like, she dives in deep, and she's the perfect tester because she finds all these things wrong with it. And then I'm like, I don't really care anymore. So that's kind of what happens with us from the technology adoption standpoint. Has that part gone well for the two of you as far as figuring out?
And she's pretty forgiving with my technological experiments, as it were. But with the home automation, it took about a week to really figure out, okay, I can't turn the lights out when any one person departs, right? That's the obvious example. Right. But it took that kind of first week to figure out exactly when we want these events to trigger. The other one is in this room with the light behind me that you saw or heard me switch, hopefully, a few moments ago. There's also a motion sensor up above the door, and when I walk into the room after sunset, then it will flip on that light. It'll stay on for 2 minutes unless there's motion. So it'll turn itself off after 2 minutes of leaving the room, and that's fine. If I were sitting here at night typing on the keyboard, though, the motion sensor wouldn't go off, and it would indeed flick off on me. So you kind of have to figure out, I don't do that often. I don't sit at my huge desk, after sunset and type here on. So it's fine. But if you were someone that did that, then it would not be fine. So you kind of just have to figure out what it means for you and what your use case is and exactly what you want to do, because there's definitely such a thing as it being too automated, right? Like, I want to save energy, so I'm going to turn the light off after 30 seconds. Well, that's not going to work because you're going to be in the room and you're going to walk away from the motion sensor. So you just kind of have to figure out how that fits into your life, and it's going to be different for everyone. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Microsoft should get the Cortana working there, well, and tell your phone, say, turn off the lights after 30 seconds, or you give it some instructions and let it worry about all that crazy stuff. I don't know. I think get to that point.
I think, John, there was some Cortana integration with. Yes, okay, I'm looking at it now. So Cortana supports some of the Insteon smart home stuff. So you, in fact, can do that if you have the right platform. So SmartThings isn't going to do it, but Insteon, it looks like you can.
What's the software you're using? Does SmartThings have its own kind of control software? So does it integrate with If This Then That or those kinds of things? Yes,
they have. I haven't used it yet, but for more complicated scenarios, you can use If This Then That. So I haven't quite gone there yet. But I'm sure, if I buy some more sensors, I'll get some more complicated scenarios that would require it.
Yeah.
Well, so they have
some system integration things that are cool with that, right? Where If This and That integrates in with other software applications that kick off stuff based on what you're doing.
So they have apps for Windows Phone, iOS, and Android, all three of them. The Windows Phone is relatively a recent development, but so I can use my HTC 8X and my Nexus 5. They both work with that.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And what was the driver for you? Was it just like because we want to have the convenience of our lights coming on and off type deal, or was it? Is there some energy savings motivation in this?
Well, a little bit, because if you do forget something, it will turn the lights out for you. If you and like this light in here, you can't forget to turn the lights off. It's impossible. They'll just turn themselves off after a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
So
okay.
There's some of that, but it was more the technology of it all.
Yeah, I've been at work. It's been such a disaster with I for a long time I sat at my desk and my monitor actually blocked the sensor. So every 15 minutes, lights would go out. And during the summer, I was sat near big, gigantic windows. So in the summer, not a problem. But in the winter, then I'd have to,
wave your arm around.
Wave your arm. And it was funny. Sometimes there's a trail that goes right by my office window. And I would wave, and people would wave back. And like, no, I'm not waving at you. Well, whatever. It's not worth, So that for me has been one of those things that it's like, I don't know if I want them turning the lights on and off. Although it'd be nice for my kids to leave the lights on all the time, and so. But I think there's some interesting when we talk about lights are lights, but the furnace is a money in most cases
right.
It's just the money hog, and so. Have you, in your situation there, thought about the Nest and any integration with that, or do you already have a programmable thermostat, or what are you using there?
So I have long thought about a Nest, and I have long thought about a programmable thermostat of some kind. But the thing that is holding me back is, in fact, you can see it in my room here if you're on the video. That is a old school boiling water radiator back there, and I don't know if you can see it off to the side here.
Yep.
Is a air conditioning window unit, so not a whole lot you can do with that.
Yeah.
I did see, and I was very tempted, Quirky makes a smart window air conditioning unit, but unfortunately it didn't have the amount of BTU that I needed for the space that we had. It was one of the way smaller BTU air conditioners. That's the amount of cooling space that the air conditioner, so like if it's, I forget exactly how it lines up, but if there's a certain amount of BTU, it says it's rated for like 600 feet or whatever. Mm-hmm. So anyway, it was too small for the space, so we couldn't get the nifty, smart, quirky air conditioner. So we have an old one, but there's definitely possibilities there. Just apartment living, I just can't do it.
Yeah. So for now, lights are kind of what you can control.
Yeah.
From that standpoint. So, yeah. Well, and do you think the price point? Ken had said in chat, $55 or even 50. Let's just say, that's a lot per unit. What's in your mind? Besides free, what's the right price point in your opinion where these things they're hitting the sweet spot? Is it $10? Is it 20?
Yeah, I'd say 10 or 20 is both reasonable. It's 55 now, and I'm an enthusiast, and I'm fine with that, right? It's expensive, early adopter tax, yada, yada, that kind of thing. So that's fine for now, but these things will get cheaper. The technology in these things is not hard, I have built a very simplistic version of this using a Zigbee microcontroller and a relay that could control a 120 volt light. The technology, the prototype I had costs about $35, and of course it was big, gigantic with wires hanging out, and nobody would actually want to use it, and you might electrocute yourself, but beyond those, it was a $35 device that could tap into a Zigbee network and could be controlled remotely from like Arduino or something like that. So, the technology's here, it's cheap. These units are $55 on the consumer market. The prototype that would probably kill you that I had was $35 in parts. I mean, it's here now. It's happening, and it's still a little bit too expensive, but it's coming down, and it's gonna be any time now.
Yeah, I think it's going to get with competition as folks moving in. I think those prices are going to tap. Chris, hold on one sec. John, I know we're coming up on your departure hour because you got to go. Thanks for coming out and joining us. Are you doing any home automation at all? Are you thinking about that, John, in your home there?
No. See, I'm in an apartment here, but they do have something that the government gives you like from October till April. the thermostat. You know, we have electric baseboards, right? So they'll replace the thermostats. Like if you make under a certain salary, they come. You just sign up and they'll come in, and if you have 6 thermostats, like one in electric, one in each room, like they'll change them all to digital. So I signed up for that. So hopefully the guy will come in. You get on a list and using digital stuff. And the other thing is I've replaced all my light bulbs with the energy efficient fluorescent ones. And sometimes I kind of think like some people it's a bit like, how is it there, like the price compared to a regular bulb is like you can leave the light bulb on all day, and you're still saving money. So sometimes it's a bit like, leave all the lights on.
That's a way of thinking about it. If I
leave them all on, it's going to cost me less money than it did last year, and they're all on.
Yeah.
So leave them on.
One way of thinking about it.
Not when you go to bed, leave them on. But it's like if you're going to leave the room and then turn it off and then come back and turn it on, and sometimes just flipping the power might blow the light bulb. So it's just like sometimes it's like if it costs so little, that's the other side of the equation. It's like, just leave them all on. It's saving me so much money. Or like I'm already saving my money. So, but that's it. But like I was saying, my buddy who's walking around the house with the thermostat there, he has like a dual energy, oil and then electric. And I think he says because of the plan he has, it costs him like 4 cents. I think 4 cents a kilowatt hour. Like really cheap on the electricity. He says when
really
the oil goes on, it's 20 cents a kilowatt, So he says, so in the wintertime, if that oil guy goes on, it's like it's costing, He said, but in the summertime, he's got the air conditioning going and everything, and it's just like, and it's only costing him 4 cents.
Right.
So sometimes, if you meet some kind of like energy requirements there or whatever, like you have an efficient system, it's like use it instead of trying to turn stuff off or whatever. I don't know, because you want to have that stabilization, the right temperature in the house and the humidity and all that stuff. And some of these systems, it's like modernized. But anyway, I'm in an apartment, so that's me. It's just the light bulbs and, like I said, maybe the thermostats.
Yeah. Well, John, thanks for jumping on. I know you got to run and go pick up your son. Thanks for jumping in.
Take care.
All right,
good to talk to you, John.
Good to see you, John. Take care.
See ya.
Bye, guys.
And of course, as John's jumping out, I think fluorescent will be replaced by LED, and that's the next technology that's coming. That's just, it costs nothing to run those lights.
Yeah. So when he said CFL, it reminded me to say that all of the lamps that I'm controlling are in fact LEDs, and the LED light bulbs have always kind of boggled my mind, because you think about the power situation in a house or in an apartment in my case. So at every single light fixture, there is a small AC to DC converter. And at every computer, there's an AC to DC converter. At everything that's not a kitchen appliance, a heater, or like a stove, anything that's not one of those things has its own lossy AC to DC converter. So I almost think that, I know there's an appliance out there that is a whole home AC to DC converter, and you have DC outlets that you can use. You can plug, this thing is like, I don't know, tens of thousands of dollars currently, but I wonder if the only reason those LED bulbs get hot is because they're having to convert AC to DC. So I wonder if we can even get some more efficiency out of those things going forward, if we can take DC through the wall somehow. But the infrastructures are all there already, so that's going to take, an extra 300 years or whatever.
Price of power, right? And those things never change until there's a cost-effective,
right,
or a cost reason to get it done, right? Nobody will ever change because it's a great idea. Right, that's always like when it makes financial sense, then we'll make the change. We'll make those changes. We'll do the crazy things like buy those expensive converters because we know they're the right thing to do, right, and that kind of stuff. But the average guy is going to wait until it makes some financial sense, and then they're going to switch those things over. But you're right; it's crazy how we convert everything, and you're like, why don't we just make it that way to begin with? And there's reasons, obviously, right, from that standpoint. Well, interesting. Anything that you're looking forward to from a home automation standpoint that's not out there at this point, or that you're kind of looking forward to, and you think my next kind of my next thing is going to be this. We talked about the heat, the thermostat. Anything else that you're looking at from home automation?
Yeah, all this stuff is still pretty fresh for me, so I'm still kind of tweaking the recipes, and I am sure there is a lot more I could do. I remember being impressed that one of the other podcasters at the DMZ who runs the Home On show, Richard, he has track lighting that leads you to the bathroom late at night.
That's
and
awesome.
It's just genius, right? Instant genius right there. And so that would be kind of cool if I've got a wish list. I need to get some more motion sensors, and I need to get some light sensors in here so that I can trigger the lights on and off via darkness instead of time of day. That would be kind of nice. So now it does it via sunset. You can be even smarter. So you say, if it happens to be a dark winter day, turn the lights on because I know it's dark. Mm-hmm. And I've still got, there are some lights. There's a, I'm not sure what kind of light bulb it is, but they're the really long ones that are in the ceiling, right? Mm-hmm. You need to plug into the switch outlet to control that. And they make, I was talking earlier about these, it's basically, it's a switch that just replaces your switch, but it has a little Zigbee radio in it, and you can control that remotely. So I think if I can somehow get permission or figure out how to turn the power off to that outlet myself, then one or the other, I don't know which.
Just ground yourself and then just change it live. It's more exciting that way.
I think that's the next place to go.
Yeah. Okay. So you've still got a few more to go. With that and getting those things that are wired that don't have plug access. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I haven't done any of it, and you think I would, but I just haven't. That's just one of those areas I haven't gone. I haven't had a reason. It's one of those things. It's one of those financial kind of things. It's like, it's not hurting me bad enough at this point.
It is still expensive too, right?
Yeah, it is. So that's an area I haven't chose to go into. I've gone into the wearable space. I still continue to do a lot of server stuff. I'm going to quiz you on that here in just a second. But, so that's where I've kind of chosen to spend my money. I think in the house I'm in right now, I still have some things, mechanical things that I could do long before I do technology things for efficiencies that would help button up, tighten up, that I'd get more return when I go to sell the house. We are moving in the next couple years, and so it will, for me, those are just kind of, it does come down to a financial decision. My tech dollars are fairly limited. I choose to put those into fitness gear and some other stuff. It just kind of depends what you like. But I'm fascinated. I've been using Zapier and If This Then That for my blog automation stuff, and I see some of those integrations there that are coming in with some of the devices, and you're like, oh, okay, there's some really cool applications to that, and even at home, every night, it's been super cold, and I have an electric blanket on the bed. Our bedroom is right over the garage. It's not insulated well, by the way, an area where I could probably put some money into it. That would make sense.
Insulation goes a long way.
Insulation over the roof. There's some there, but it's the old stuff, and it's just not great. So that floor gets really cold. So our room is kind of chilly, and so we bought an electric blanket, and there's just nothing better than cold room, get in the sheets and it's
warm blanket,
right? It's warm, but that darn thing takes me. I have to think to turn it on, And I'd love to be able to be down here and with my phone just go boop, turn that bad boy on, and have it warming up for me while I'm sitting down here. So maybe that's
put a vibration sensor. It's upstairs, right?
Right.
Okay. Put a vibration sensor on the first step, and when it's past like 10 p.m.
There you go.
And a footstep happens, then you can make that happen. Or you could use some kind of presence sensor or something. But I'm sure there's a way you could get that warm before you even go up there.
Well, what might be,
and without having to do anything,
is just on my computer, because I'm always down here, right?
Yeah.
Boom. Hey, you want to start the warm up sequence, and you just say yes, and then maybe at 10 o'clock, and then and it just reminds you until you get up there. So
yeah, that's something in the Insteon world, I believe it is, which I have no experience with. So if I'm wrong, chat room, let me know. But they have this notion of scenes, and SmartThings has something similar. So there's a home and an away state by default, and you can add your own different states. So you can say it's movie time now, and you can have your system dim the lights and turn on the popcorn maker. And yeah, I don't know, that's ridiculous, but
you would need an auto load of the popcorn into the microwave and turn it on.
Yes. Same thing with coffee makers, by the way. It's like, well, unless you have something that grinds the beans and then drops it in, you need a whole Rube Goldberg thing going on. But so they have this notion of scenes. So you can say, this is my, I'm forgetting what they call it in SmartThings, but this is my home mode. This is what happens when everybody's gone. This is what happens when we're watching movies. It can. They also introduced, and I'm really mad about this, but they introduced integration with the Harmony infrared blaster hub.
Yeah.
So it can turn on. So I use Harmony to turn on my Windows Media Center box and my surround system and receiver and TV and all of those, and it orchestrates the inputs such that it makes sense.
Right.
So you could say, go into movie mode. It will automatically talk to your Harmony, and it will do all of that stuff for you and dim the lights, and that would be a pretty nice little scene to have. So you can make these kind of customized scenes where you're doing... So now it's podcasting time. Turn on the key light, right? That kind of thing. So now here's why I'm kind of mad about it. I have what they call the smart remote Harmony, and you have to have the ultimate
of course.
Harmony.
Of course.
But here's the kicker, is they use the same hub. So there's this thing, all it does is shoot infrared signal, right? And it talks to each remote, and you say, do a thing, and it makes all the infrared happen to make the things happen. So if I just I'm pretty sure, if I just go to Best Buy and buy an Ultimate, come home, program it into my hub, set up SmartThings, and then return it, that it would actually work.
You should try.
Yeah.
I encourage you to try, for sure. What is how much, what do these Harmony remotes cost?
So they are too expensive, I can tell you. But there's nothing better that I've ever used. It's really, really nice. I'm thinking it's $150 for the Smart Control, which is the one that I have. And that is a very basic remote, and it doesn't have, like, the Ultimate has like some crazy touchscreen business, and I just, all we get is over-the-air TV. We don't even have cable, so I just didn't need all of that kind of functionality. So basically you have the track buttons like play and stop, and then you have some numbers and a few custom buttons, and that's pretty much it. It's a very small remote. It's maybe the length of your hand or something like that, and that's it. Whereas the Ultimate is this ginormous thing with a touch screen, and it's just too much for what we needed. So I looked it up. It's $130 from Logitech.com, it looks like. And that comes with the infrared hub and the smart remote that talks to the hub via RF. So that's kind of cool. You can put your hand behind the pillow and hit pause, and it'll still work because it just goes, it doesn't need IR to talk to the hub. Mm-hmm. The hub is what sends out the infrared to control the devices. So that's pretty neat. Or if I could control it from here and it'll go through the walls or whatever. But it never fails, basically, is kind of the point.
Except when you really need it, and then it doesn't work.
And then it definitely will not work.
When the TV comes on too loud and you're trying to turn it down and it doesn't work. Yeah, that always seems like that's the way it goes. Hey, Artie, let me ask you this from a Media Center standpoint. We haven't talked about Media Center in a lot of episodes here. We've got some other shows that cover that as well. But from your standpoint, I actually I had a Windows 7 box that I was kind of using as my Media Center back here in the studio area. It's where I watch TV. When I'm producing podcasts, I'll have the football games playing or whatever. That's what it runs. I moved up to Windows 8, and I'm like, the other day, I installed the connector for the new Windows Server 2012, and I blew it up. I couldn't get logged back in. It was a mess. I'm like, I'll just upgrade it to Windows 8. Forgetting, I shouldn't, but I forgot.
Yeah, don't do that.
Media Center, not so much. And I went to go get the Pro Pack, and of course, the Pro version of Windows 8 is not available to us MSDN subscribers. And so I had to pay $99 to do that. I'm like, I don't think so. So I went back to Windows 7 with it. But what are your thoughts on Media Center? Are you going to kind of hold on as long as you possibly can?
I'm still holding on, man, because I've looked at, I'm keeping my eyes open. I'm because clearly Media Center's days are numbered, and that's really unfortunate because I think it was an incredible product, and I think they could have made success out of it. They've just chosen not to, and they've at least kept it alive through the support cycle. Windows 7 is supported for a long time to come, and hopefully Media Center will stick around, and it works really well right now. It's a little fidgety when you first start with it, but I'm still really liking what it gives me. So I've looked at there's a couple new DVR platforms out there that I've taken note of, and that is Simple TV and Tableau. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at both of those thinking, well, when is that going to be good? Because right now, neither of those devices, as far as I've seen, can do surround sound, which is crucial, given that we have it's an Energy Take Classic system with some cheap receiver, and getting surround sound out of television, particularly when you're watching something like, you get free HD football in surround sound over the air for free over DTV. So having surround sound is kind of crucial, and that makes me a weirdo. I get it, because I went through the process of threading the wires underneath the carpet, and we've got stands behind the couch.
Did you buy the thin wires so that they would lay flat as they went underneath the carpet? You can buy the extra flat ones. Yeah,
they are flat.
Oh, okay.
So maybe by accident.
Yeah. No.
And then, but
okay.
it gets spoiled because there's also a LAN cable under there that spoils it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, in that LAN cable you can buy flat. You can.
Yes.
You can buy yeah.
No, but I definitely have the round one. But so none of those platforms do that yet, and I'm also waiting for any one of these platforms to do Blu-ray, which would just be nice. I mean, why not?
Wow.
I mean, I want a device that can serve as the more or less the single input, and Blu-ray and surround sound and all of these kind of features are a part of that story, and I just don't see them doing it yet. So it's getting there, but they're definitely not there yet.
Yeah, we have a ways to go. We have a ways to go. When it went down, I was like, okay, I have a bunch of HD home runs here, and I was like, okay, I haven't looked at alternatives for a while, so let me see what's available. So in the HD home run software, they give you some suggestions: Easy HD TV DVR. There's one called For the Record. There's another one called J River Media Center.
Heard of that one.
Yeah, another one called Media Portal, which actually was the winner of all these, but still didn't work for me. And then Next PVR. Those are all some suggestions. So I sat down on Sunday afternoon, and I tried running all of them, right? So I went out to their website. I'm like, oh, interesting. Some of them were free trials. Some of them were free, like Media Portal. I think of all those that I tried, Media Portal has the best chance of success. It's an open source, runs on Windows. It's got a good-looking interface. I just couldn't figure out how to use it. I mean, I'm a pretty savvy guy, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. It also, even though it's on the HD home run software, it doesn't work, apparently, easily with the HD home run, because I could not. Media Center just picks those up and programs them and scans them and finds the channels, and I mean, in 15 minutes, you are up and running with TV, right? I mean, that's just the Media Center experience. Just works. None of these would work for me, and I spent about 6 hours going through it, and it was really one of those things. I was really ready to switch. I'm like, okay, if I can make one of these even get close, I'll just switch to it, and none of them could. I mean, all those different options, I guess, and I didn't try XBMC, and I know that's one that a lot of folks go to.
Has it now as of Frodo, and it's not XBMC anymore, mind you. It's called Kodi now, with a Kodi. So as of their version, I think it was Frodo, they've added the ability to do live TV. I don't think there was DVR in there quite yet. And I'm unsure of what the surround sound situation was, but they could technically do it.
Right. Just not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
you plug in Media Center, and I know it's a computer connected to the TV, and that sometimes sucks too. But for the most part, it works, right? I mean, it works. It's sitting there, and you don't touch it, and you use it like an opaque box. And then every once in a while, when you need to do something like, I know there's some like, I don't know, it's on like Lifetime TV or something like that, and you can just open a web browser and use a keyboard and watch it on their website. So if you get desperate, you can do that kind of thing. That's a nice backup option to have. Although if that were the regular experience all the time, that would be kind of horrible. But Media Center works really, really well for what it does, and I really want one of these products to kind of take that next step.
I know. I keep hoping. I gave it a shot. I gave it a whole afternoon. I mean, it was 6 hours of trying different things and installing different pieces of software, and at the end of the day, it was put Windows 7 back on the flash drive and put Windows 7 back on that PC. That's what I ended up doing. I had Media Center back up and running, recording my shows in 25 minutes. It was one of those well, that's not technically true because it takes about 3 hours, maybe more, to update Windows 7 these days. So if you take the most recent copy of Windows 7 from Microsoft, install it on a PC, it's all afternoon before that thing's ready to. It's got all the updates, so it's pretty ugly from that standpoint. So, well, quick lightning round with you. Chromecast or Fire Stick? Have you tried? I know you've tried Chromecast. Have you looked at the Fire Stick? And aren't they the same thing?
Yeah, well, they've got some. The Fire Stick has some. What's the Miracast capabilities, which apparently doesn't work very well. Now I haven't used it, so I don't know about that personally.
I ordered one. Somebody wanted it for Christmas, and so I just gave it to him. I was like, "You can have mine." So I still don't have one, but I paid $20. They gave me $40 for it, so it was a pretty good deal.
I have not seen good reviews about their Miracast support, at least, and I don't know. So it's the same thing with the Fire Phone. Everybody says, "Oh, well, Amazon people would love this," and I'm an Amazon, I'm a Prime member. I'm an Amazon person, but I just don't understand why I would go with that versus Roku or something like that, because it's just a more open platform. They're not going to shove Amazon stuff in my face all day. I kind of like that. So I find myself struggling to recommend any of the Fire products.
What about the Echo? Did you look at that? Is that something you're interested in?
Now, the Echo was cool. I'm not sure if people will actually buy into it. Now, I kind of see. I tried to see what their vision was. Right? What is the vision of what's the purpose of this product? And I'll tell you what it is. It's the computer on Star Trek. That's what they're trying to be. So there's just this ambient thing in the wall, right? And it's a tube that happens to be a speaker, and you can ask it things. I totally get that vision, but I'm not sure, given the prevalence of talking robots in our smartphones, I'm not sure most people will pick up on that. But I can kind of see where it's going, but I can't imagine it would be terribly popular.
Yeah. Well, I signed up. I wasn't one of the ones chosen, in the first round. So they must have chose other people. And we'll see what goes. Sarah was my wife. She was all for it. This was one of those things where we had this conversation in our Facebook group. I think it was maybe Tim Black had said, "Hey, does anybody see what's going on with this? Right? What's the real world application for this?" And Sarah was like, I'd dig to have something like that. One of the cool things I think would be the auto listing. Hey, make a list, or add this to I'm running out. I make the kids lunches in the morning, and I'd love to just have a lunch list. And when I run out of stuff, or I see us running out of stuff, I'm just say, hey, add this to the lunch list. And that would be kind of a running, I wouldn't have to go write something down or remember, or, even though we've got a little Post-it thing on the fridge and I could just write it there, it would be really sweet to just say, hey, Echo, go to the lunch list, write down drinks, for the kids. Right.
Yeah, I want Earl Grey tea, hot.
Exactly. That would be pretty cool. And it'd be even better if then once a day, if it came back to me and said, I've got your list. Do you want me just to have it delivered to you, and I think that's where it's headed, right? From that standpoint. So from are you an avid Chromecast user? Do you
So
use
yes,
them?
I've recently started using, and for a very specific reason that we've talked about before in the podcast, the Chromecast for all of my Netflix consumption instead of Media Center. So what I do is I have a scene set on the Harmony that flips all the inputs to the right place and sets the Chromecast, which is plugged into the back of the receiver in this case, mind you. And the crucial thing that I'm looking for, I would love to just use the Windows Media Center Netflix plugin. In fact, I have for years. But the thing that drove me to the Chromecast is that, oddly enough, this little stupid stick supports 5.1 surround sound audio on Netflix streaming. And the Silverlight version, I think it is,
I think you're right.
in Windows Media Center does not. And they're not going to update it, I'd imagine, to support 5.1. So it's kind of annoying, you know, you open your phone, you got to like put the remote down and fiddle around, but you know, ultimately you're sitting down to watch, you know, Doctor Who or whatever, and you get surround sound, and I'm just happy with that. So I'll put up with the fiddliness. I'd love to do it all through the remote because I think that's a better experience. But having the Chromecast do the surround sound is crucial for me. So that's what I've been using that primarily for. And occasionally, you know, having people over, you can play videos of cats or something on the, you know, on the Chromecast.
Yeah, we did that. Actually, we did it at a Christmas party.
Sure.
We did karaoke YouTube, which was
nice.
You know, in a few drinks. You know, I'm not going to lie. And then various people were queuing up YouTube videos. Oh, you got to hear this, and you know, some Will Smith, and we did some Madonna and some Eric Clapton. I mean, just this whole eclectic, you know, music mix showed up.
And Gangnam Style?
It was that didn't get played, but that would have been a good one. Darn it! Oh, I wish I would have remembered that one. But it was interesting. And so the other day, here's the test at our house, right? So the other day, Sarah, we were sitting on the couch, and she said, "Hey, have you seen such and such a video on?" I think it was a Fallon. It was one of the Jimmy Fallon videos. Which, by the way, I watch more Jimmy Fallon on YouTube than I watch him on TV.
Yeah, me too.
At this point, it's great. You can go right to the funny stuff. And she said, "Oh, you got to see it." And she picked up her, you know, she has a Galaxy S4. She picked it up, started the YouTube video, started Chromecast, boom, it was on. I mean, I didn't see the video the first time because I was so stunned that it actually worked.
Like, what?
I was like, hold on, this doesn't work this way for you. You know, usually I have to fix it to make it work for you. And so that was one of those points where I went, man, the Chromecast was, in this case, fairly bulletproof.
Yeah.
If she could just bring it up on her phone, push it to the Chromecast, and then boom, it was on. And I was pretty impressed from that standpoint. So it really shines in that particular area. It'd be great if it had Miracast on it. Now they won't do it.
Yep.
But it'd be great if it did. That'd be awesome. That'd
And
be
the Fire Stick does.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's some offering coming from Microsoft too, or maybe it's already
Oh,
out.
yes. They had a little dongle that did that as well. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I think I remember it being rather expensive was one of its problems.
It is. We talked about it. So Brian Freelander was on my podcast a couple weeks back. That was like Christmas, and I'm having trouble remembering December at this point. But he's got a little device. They're like $99. So, yeah, it's not I don't think they're as cheap as is some of those. You know, I bought my Fire Stick for $20. I bought my Chromecast, my most recent. This isn't the one that we keep. I have two of them, but and why it's sitting on my desk, I don't know. But this I bought a refurb for $20, right? So it works great.
Now, I got mine new on Amazon for $28.
Yeah.
So it launched at $35. It's down a little bit now.
No, it's a pretty cool little device to have, and so good to kind of catch up with that. Chris, we're out of time from that standpoint. Thank you for taking your time. We had a whole bunch of stuff in the show notes about home server stuff, and I would love to have you come back on. Let me talk to Dave, and we'll have you come on home server show. You know, we're kind of doing that every other week at this point, but it'd be good to have you. Would you come on if we asked you?
Sure. Yeah, if you want to. If you want to talk about some Linux servers, if that's okay.
I know, absolutely.
I'm in.
Yeah, no, right on. I think, you know, you've made some moves with your servers, and That would be a great one to discuss over there. And as well, I kind of teased early in the show that I would play the call from Neil. Neil, I'll apologize. I didn't mean to lead you on. We'll play that next show. It just didn't fit in what we were talking about. Neil had some questions about MSDN and licensing and what does the average guy do because it's so expensive to do this. You can't. TechNet used to be available and it's not anymore. And he actually mentions DreamSpark. So I'll play that on the next show, or we'll play that, Neil, coming up here. You've been a very faithful listener. Sorry we didn't get to that tonight, but we'll play that again. Chris, you're found over at Digital Media Zone. The End User is the name of your podcast. What's the easiest way for people to connect to that if they wanted to go out and listen?
So if you want the absolute easiest way, you go to thEndUsr.com. That's THENDUSR.com. Now, all that does is redirect to the digitalmediazone.com/whatever/thEndUsr. So you also want to go over to thedigitalmediazone.com. The DMZ has been a little more active during CES times. We've been writing a few blog posts that we normally don't write over the year, and I've written two myself for this so far in this CES season. So we've got a great longer edition of the End User this week for talking about everything at CES, and you should go check that out. And like I said, we've got a little better coverage of CES on the blog as well, so you'll probably want to check that out over at thedigitalmediazone.com.
Good, and this would be a good week if you haven't ever done that before and you're a listener to my show. This would be a good week because of all the extra stuff they got going on over there to pop over there. When are you guys live? If folks want to join, because I know you do live. When are you live?
Yes, so we do it live. We do it a little less of a live show and more of like a peek at us recording. So, for example, I'll say, "Oh no, stop! I'll edit that out," and we'll go on, which is. Not how you guys do it.
No, we're one-take wonders. We don't care. We just crank it out and hope for the best.
And call it live to drive is what they call it. So anyway, I take it and edit it and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, we are live. It's like a sneak peek into the cutting room floor of the show, and we are live on Wednesdays typically at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So we took a little bit of time off during the winter break, but we're back in it, and it's CES season, so we're definitely having a good time over there.
Yeah, and follow Chris on Twitter and on Google Plus if you want to get notifications that they're going live. I get those all the time. I see that you guys are doing that. So it's if you want to know when they're doing that and just get a reminder, that's probably the best way. And I think Google Plus is where I always see it. When just before you guys are going live, I think you say. I think that's.
Yeah, I always post it there. I post it on. We've got the End User on Facebook. We've got at the End User on Twitter, and I'm at Chris Hale Barnes. So any one of those places, you'll see it.
Yeah, very good. And of course, all that stuff will be in the show notes. So if you want to go over to theaverageguy.tv, this will be HGG198, and you can get all the show notes for everything that we talked about. And Chris, hang around for a second. Let me close things up, and then we'll do a little bit of post show. I want to remind you, if you haven't signed up for the newsletter yet, you might want to do that. Lots of good stuff in that newsletter. If you haven't got the newsletter yet, so if you're not signed up, but you want to get this one I wrote in early January is actually pretty good. There's some good information in there. Typically, it's me just rambling, but this one you might actually want to read. Head over to theaverageguy.tv/newsletter, and there's a way to, if you like it, subscribe to it. Every month I'll send you a little note, things that are going on here in the networks, just some ideas, things you might have missed. Not all of you follow social media, and that's okay. It's okay not to be on Facebook. It's okay not to be on Twitter, those kinds of things. If you don't do that, the newsletter oftentimes has kind of the behind-the-scenes stuff that's going on. So head over to theaverageguy.tv/newsletter. There's a place to sign up for it, and a complete copy of the newsletter is there, and we talk about some things you should be thinking about in the new year with some backup and some of those kinds of things. So you want to head over there and take a peek at that newsletter. A reminder and a thank you for using our Amazon affiliate link. You guys rocked it in December, and so it was, which you should have, right? Everybody should have used the link, and I appreciate you using that. TheAverageGuy.tv/Amazon. Don't forget, Canadians, we have a special one for you, TheAverageGuy.tv/AmazonCA, all one word, AmazonCA. Those funds actually go directly to John Zadler. Any profit there we do, Zadler will use that to purchase stuff, and then he'll just hack on it. You know Zadler. He likes to cut stuff up and make stuff, try stuff out, and so he'll be using those funds. So if you're in Canada, You can't use the U.S. one, so use the Canadian, right? U.S. residents, don't use the Canadian one. Use the U.S. one. Okay, I don't know how many times I have to say that. The Amazon, just use Amazon or Amazon CA based on where you're at. And I don't have one for any other country, so I apologize. There are a few other ones. We just haven't done that yet. I am on Saturday mornings with Ask the Podcast Coach with Dave Jackson. And so if you want to head out Saturday mornings, if you're not doing anything and you're thinking about podcasting or you got some questions, we take live call-in questions from podcasters, 9:30 a.m. Central, 10 Eastern, 10:30 Eastern, out at the Ask the Podcast Coach.com. If you haven't started listening to Cyber Frontiers, this would be a great time to do it. Some really good. The last 3 have some really practical Twitter applications about about using big data and Twitter. You can build your own kind of. Christian's got some instructions on doing some stuff to mine Twitter that's out there, and so there's some amazing stuff. Don't forget about Cyber Frontiers. It'd be a good time to subscribe to it. And of course, on Home Tech Tips 13. Lucky number 13, we kind of launched the new host options that Maple Grove partners. That's Christian's company, Maple Grove, that he's doing. By the way, he's 20 years old, which is crazy to think that this kid is doing these things at 20 years old.
That's great.
But yeah, it is amazing. This kid's doing some amazing stuff and kicking it at the University of Maryland as well. But Maple Grove partners. So if you're thinking about creating a WordPress website, you want to do your own blog, Christian's got some options for you as cheap as $10 a month to kind of host and super secure your data and all that kind of, and you'd be supporting a great cause for what Christian's doing in school there as well. So you can pay Bluehost or GoDaddy. You can pay them if you want, but $10 a month, that goes right to Christian, and he hosts that for you. Super secure servers. We cover it in Home Tech Tips 13. Head out to theaverageguy.tv and look for Home Tech Tips, and we do a little bit about a 12-minute segment on everything that those host options are, and in fact, how to take advantage of it. So if you want to do that, that would be great. Chris, thanks again for taking a few minutes. Stay around for the post show if you would, and I appreciate it. Great to have you on, and we'll work on get you on the home server show as well, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Thanks for having me.
You bet. We're out here every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out at theaverageguy.tv/live. Every Thursday. I don't have another planned day off until 2017, so you'll want to come out here and join us live. Thanks for everybody that is in the chat. Great chat room tonight. Andrew Morris, great to see you in chat, by the way. Great to have you back out. And everybody else who came out to be a part of the chat room, we want to say thanks. And with that, we'll say good night, everybody.